Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English Over Tea. Listen and speak. I'm Anna.
And I'm Dan.
Today, we are talking about travel and adventures. Talking in English about travel and adventure helps you share your exciting experiences, explore new places, and have conversations that ignite a sense of curiosity and cultural discovery. How are you doing today, Dan?
Oh, I'm doing great, Anna. Though, to be honest, I think I have a bit of what we call itchy feet.
Itchy feet? That sounds like you need to see a doctor, Dan.
No. For our listeners, itchy feet is actually an idiom we use when someone has a very strong desire to travel or go somewhere new. My bags are practically packing themselves in my mind.
I know that feeling. But travel isn't always smooth sailing. I was actually thinking about my very first trip abroad the other day. I was so young and, well, let's just say I was a bit clueless. When I got to the check-in counter, the agent asked for my passport. I gave it to her, and then I just stood there. She looked at me, and I looked at her, and finally she said, do you want this back? Wait, did you think they just kept it? I did. I honestly thought the airline kept your passport until you actually got on the flight. I was so embarrassed. I had to learn the hard way that you should always make sure you get your passport back immediately.
That's hilarious. But hey, we've all been there. It reminds me of a time I was in a tiny village in Italy. I wanted a coffee with just a little bit of milk, a cortado style. But I realized I had no idea what the Italian word for milk was. The barista didn't speak a word of English, so I'm standing there, everyone is watching, and I literally started pointing at my coffee and going, moo? Moo? Like a cow.
Oh no, Dan, please tell me you didn't actually moo at a professional barista.
I totally did. He just stared at me like I was a crazy foreigner. It was such a cultural misunderstanding. For those listening, a cultural misunderstanding is when you have a problem or a confusing moment because you don't understand the local customs or language of a place.
That is a classic. But that's the beauty of a getaway, right? Even the embarrassing parts become great stories later.
Definitely. But wait, you used the word getaway. Let's explain that for our learners. A getaway is a short trip, often just for a weekend, where you get away from your normal life, your job, and your daily routine.
Exactly. And speaking of getaways, Dan, who is usually your travel buddy?
My travel buddy? Well, a travel buddy is just a friend or companion you travel with. Usually it's my brother, but he's a bit of a nightmare to pack for. He is the ultimate overpacker.
Oh, I'm definitely an overpacker too. An overpacker is someone who puts way too many things in their suitcase, usually things they don't even need. I always think, what if I need 5 pairs of shoes for a 3-day trip?
See, I'm the opposite. I try to travel light. When you travel light, it means you only take the bare essentials, the most important things, and usually just fit everything into one small backpack. It makes moving through airports so much easier.
I envy you. I'm always the one struggling at the luggage claim. That's the area in the airport where you wait for your big suitcases to come out on the moving belt after your flight. Sometimes it feels like my bag is the very last one to show up.
Or worse, it doesn't show up at all. That's why I prefer a carry-on. A carry-on is a small bag that you are allowed to take onto the plane with you and keep in the overhead compartment.
That's smart. But even if you travel light, you still have to deal with the hustle and bustle of the airport.
Oh, good phrase. Hustle and bustle refers to a place that is very busy, noisy, and full of activity. Airports are definitely the definition of hustle and bustle. It can be so overwhelming.
Yes, when something is overwhelming, it feels like it's too much to handle, too many sights, smells, and people all at once. I remember landing in New York for the first time. The sheer number of people was so overwhelming, I almost turned around and got back on the plane.
I'm glad you didn't. You would have missed out on all the adventures. But before you even get to the airport, you have to book everything. In travel, to book doesn't mean a thing you read. It's a verb that means to reserve or pay for something in advance, like a flight or a hotel room.
Right, and if you're like me, you probably look at a dozen holiday brochures first. Those are the little magazines or booklets that have pictures and information about different vacation spots.
I love flipping through those, but honestly, sometimes I prefer to just do something spur of the moment.
Spur of the moment? That's a great one. It means doing something spontaneously without any previous plan.
Exactly. Sometimes the best trips are when you just decide to go wherever the wind blows you, which is another way of saying you're being spontaneous and going wherever you feel like in the moment.
I wish I could be that relaxed. I'm a planner through and through. I need to know my final destination, the last place I'm traveling to on my journey.
Well, whether you plan every second or just wing it, you still need to know some survival English for when you arrive.
You're so right. Survival English refers to the basic, essential phrases you need to get what you need, like food, a room, or directions.
Like asking, where you headed, which is a very casual way people might ask, where are you going?
Or even just, excuse me, which is the simplest and best way to be polite when you need to interrupt someone to ask for help.
True. Well, Anna, I think we've set the stage. We've got our bags, well, your overpacked bags and my small one, and we're ready to dive deep into the world of travel.
Let's do it.
So, picking up where we left off on at, before you even step foot on a plane, you have to figure out what kind of traveler you actually are. It's like finding your travel identity.
Oh, definitely. I think my travel identity, which just means the specific style or way you prefer to experience a trip, is definitely the relaxer. I am all about that R&R.
R&R, wait, let's break that down for everyone. R&R stands for rest and relaxation. It's a very common multi-word phrase we use when we just want to take it easy, maybe sit on a beach with a cold drink and, well, do absolutely nothing.
Exactly. No stress, no schedules. But you, Dan, you strike me as the type who likes roughing it.
Guilty. Roughing it is a great expression that means traveling or staying in a place without any luxury or modern comforts. Think camping, sleeping on the ground in a tent, or staying in a very basic hostel. It's not for everyone, but I love that feeling of being close to nature.
Yeah, no. My version of nature is a hotel room with a balcony and a really good audio guide.
An audio guide is that little device you rent at museums or historical sites that tells you all the facts through headphones. It's actually a fantastic way to practice your English while you sightsee.
It really is. But some people prefer to just go solo. Have you ever done any solo travel, Dan?
I have. Solo travel simply means traveling alone without a companion. It can be a bit scary at first, but it's a huge opportunity for self-discovery, which is when you learn new things about your own character and feelings. I remember once I took a trip to the mountains by myself just to see if I could handle the silence. I lasted about 2 hours before I started talking to a mountain goat.
At least the goat didn't talk back. But whether you're going alone or with a travel buddy, you have to decide, are you going to book everything in advance or just go wherever the wind blows you?
Oh, I love that one. Wherever the wind blows you is a poetic way of saying you're going to be spontaneous and let your circumstances decide where you go next. It's the ultimate way to be spur of the moment.
Spur of the moment. That's such a useful phrase. It describes an action or decision that is spontaneous and not planned at all. Like, I saw a cheap flight to Paris and bought it on the spur of the moment.
I wish I was that brave. I usually feel the need to make a reservation. For our listeners, to make a reservation is the standard phrase for booking a room, a table at a restaurant, or a seat on a train in advance. I get so nervous about arriving somewhere and having no place to sleep.
Me too. I'm a total overplanner. I even have a packing list that I check 3 times.
That's actually really smart. Some people even use a database to organize their packing, which is just a fancy way of saying a very organized digital list. You can organize it by the type of trip, like is it a beach trip or a hiking trip?
That leads us to a big question every traveler asks. What should I pack for? This phrase is so important because it isn't just asking about clothes. It's asking about the activities and the weather you need to prepare for. If you ask, what should I pack for? You're asking, do I need a swimsuit or should I bring a heavy coat?
Right, and you have to fit it all into your luggage. We use the words luggage and baggage interchangeably to talk about the suitcases and bags you take on your journey.
And if you're like me, you're trying to fit your whole life into one bag. I always tell myself, Anna, you need to travel light.
Travel light is such a classic travel phrase. It means to travel with very few items, usually just the essentials. The essentials are the most basic and necessary things you can't live without, like your passport, your phone, and maybe a toothbrush.
Hopefully more than maybe a toothbrush. But Dan, what happens if your budget doesn't stretch to a fancy hotel?
Ah, a budget doesn't stretch to something. That means you don't have enough money to afford it. If that happens, you might have to travel on a shoestring.
On a shoestring. I love that image. It means traveling with a very small amount of money, being very careful with every cent you spend. You might stay in a hostel, which is a cheaper type of accommodation where travelers often share rooms, instead of a big hotel.
Exactly. But even if you're traveling on a budget, you can still find those hidden gems.
Hidden gems. That's one of my favorite travel terms. It refers to wonderful places that aren't famous or touristy yet. They're special spots that most people don't know about.
Like that tiny cafe I found in the back streets of Lisbon. Oh man, the coffee was incredible. It was definitely off the beaten path.
Off the beaten path, meaning a place that is away from the popular areas where all the tourists go. It's where the locals hang out.
Exactly. But before we find those gems, we actually have to survive the airport. And let me tell you, Anna, the hustle and bustle of a major airport can be a real nightmare if you aren't prepared.
It really can. You know, Dan, earlier we were talking about the airport hustle and bustle, but for me, the real adventure, or the real disaster, starts the moment I step outside the terminal and realize I have no idea how to get to my hotel.
Oh, I've been there. I remember being in this tiny town where I was looking for a bus stop for like 40 minutes. I was so lost. Eventually, I realized the bus stop was just a rusty metal pole with no sign on it. Apparently, everyone just knew it was the stop except for me.
That's the worst. You're just standing there staring at a pole like it's a monument.
Exactly. I must have looked really confused because a local finally walked up to me and said, "Where are you headed?" For our listeners, "where you headed" is a very casual, reduced way of asking, "where are you going?" or "what is your destination?" The word headed refers to the direction you are moving in.
It's such a great, friendly phrase. But when you are the one starting the conversation to ask for help, you should always start with, "excuse me." It's the easiest way to be polite when you're interrupting someone to ask, which way to the bus stop? Or how far is it to the airport?
Definitely. And if the bus is too confusing, you might just hit the road in a taxi. To hit the road means to begin a journey, usually by car or taxi.
Oh, I love taking taxis in new cities because the drive is often so scenic. When a route is scenic, it means it's very beautiful and nice to look at, full of pretty landscapes. But you have to know how to talk to the driver. When you reach your hotel, you can say, "you can drop me here," or "drop me off here."
Or if you want to sound really like a local, you can just point and say, "this is me." It sounds funny, right? Like you're saying you are the building. But in a taxi, "this is me" actually means this is my stop or this is where I need to get out.
I'll have to remember that. This is me while pointing at a giant hotel. But Dan, what if you get dropped off and realize you don't have any local cash?
Uh-oh, that's a problem. You'd need to ask, where's the closest ATM? ATM stands for Automated Teller Machine, and it's where you get your cash. In some countries, they might call them cash points.
Good tip. And if you're traveling on a shoestring, like we mentioned before, you probably aren't eating at fancy restaurants every night. You might need to find a grocery store nearby.
Wait, Anna, how do you pronounce that word? I've heard it two ways.
You're right. You can say grocery with an S sound, or as many people in the US do, you can say grocery, like it has an SH sound in the middle. Either way, it's a great place to grab a bite to eat. To grab a bite to eat is just a natural, casual way to say, go get some food.
It's much better than falling into a tourist trap. A tourist trap is a place, like a restaurant or shop, that is specifically designed to attract tourists and usually charges way too much money for something that isn't very good quality.
Ugh, I hate those. That's why I always try to bring some stupid money with me.
Stupid money? Is that money for when you do something silly?
Haha, kind of. Stupid money is a slang term for having a little bit of extra cash set aside for unexpected or stupid things that happen, like an accident, a forgotten fee, or an emergency. It's your margin for unforeseen issues, which means an extra bit of safety for problems you didn't expect.
That's actually really smart. It keeps you from ending up without a penny to your name. If you don't have a penny to your name, it means you have absolutely no money at all, not even 1 cent.
Exactly. It's better to have that extra cushion so you can occasionally splurge. To splurge means to spend money freely on something expensive or special as a treat for yourself. It's the opposite of to squander money, which means to waste your money carelessly on things that aren't worth it.
I'm a professional at splurging on local coffee. But after a long day of navigating and finding ATMs, I'm usually dead on my feet.
Oh, dead on my feet. That's a perfect phrase for travel. It means you're completely exhausted, usually from standing or walking all day.
I feel like that every time I try to travel at my own pace. Even if you have a rough plan, which is a general idea of what you want to do without a strict schedule, you still end up walking miles.
But that's how you find those breathtaking views. If a view is breathtaking, it is so beautiful or impressive that it literally takes your breath away.
It's worth the exhaustion, though I must admit, I once spent my entire first day in Japan just trying to figure out the train schedule. I was so tired, I felt like I had been burning the midnight oil before the trip even started.
Burning the midnight oil? For our listeners, that means staying up very late to work or study.
Yeah, I was definitely not prepared for the time difference. But hey, that's all part of being a digital nomad or a traveler, right?
Definitely.
You know, Anna, we survived the packing and the taxi ride, but now we're at the airport. And for a lot of people, this is where the nerves really kick in.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when you get to the check-in counter. That's the desk where you show your ID and get your ticket. I always have this moment of panic where I think, did I actually bring my passport? Even though I've checked my bag 5 times.
I do the same thing. I'm standing there and the agent says, "Passport, please," and suddenly my mind goes blank. By the way, for our listeners, when you're at the check-in counter, they'll also ask, "Are you checking any luggage?"
Right, and we should clarify that checking luggage means you are giving your big suitcases to the airline so they can put them under the plane. You won't see those bags again until you reach your final destination.
Unless you have a connecting flight. A connecting flight is when you have to stop in a different city and get on a new plane to finish your journey.
Ugh, connecting flights are the worst if your first plane is late. You have to sprint, which means to run very, very fast, across the airport just to make it to the gate before they close it. I once had to sprint through the Chicago airport, and I'm pretty sure I looked like a crazy person.
Better a crazy person than someone who missed their flight. But hey, once you actually land, you have to go through customs. That's the place where officers might ask, "Do you have anything to declare?"
To declare sounds so serious, doesn't it? Like you're making a grand speech. But in travel, it just means telling the officers if you bought anything expensive or restricted that you're bringing into the country.
Exactly. I declare I bought too many souvenirs. But after the airport, the next big step is the hotel. I love that feeling of walking up to the reception desk.
Me too. Though you have to know the right phrase. You should say, "I have a reservation under Dan." Under, in this case, means registered in the name of.
And then you start asking about the amenities. Amenities is a fancy word for the extra features a hotel offers, like a pool, a gym, or free Wi-Fi.
I'm always asking, is breakfast included? Because let's be honest, a free hotel breakfast is one of the best parts of a getaway.
It really is. But sometimes things don't go perfectly. I remember once I arrived at a hotel and they told me my reservation was for the next week. I was a whole 7 days early.
Oh no, haha, what did you do?
Well, I had to stay in what was basically a storage room, a tiny room usually used for keeping extra furniture or supplies, because the hotel was fully booked, meaning every single room was taken. It was so small I couldn't even open my suitcase.
That is a total travel mishap. A mishap is just a polite word for a small accident or a bit of bad luck. But even the mishaps teach you about the local culture.
So true. You can't just visit a place, you have to taste the culture. I don't just mean food, though food is a big part of it, but also the way people live and their customs.
Yes, customs are the traditional ways of behaving in a specific society. Like in Italy, if you want to visit a church, there's often a dress code. You might need to have your shoulders covered.
I learned that the hard way. I showed up in a tank top and had to buy a giant flowery scarf from a street vendor just to go inside. I looked very stylish.
I bet. But that's why it's so important to learn some common courtesies, those simple, polite phrases like hello, please, and thank you in the local language. It shows you respect the people who live there.
It really does. It keeps you from being seen as just another tourist in a tourist trap.
And if you're brave, you can try to immerse yourself. To immerse yourself means to become completely involved in something. For travel, it means living like a local, maybe shopping at the grocery store nearby instead of eating at restaurants every night.
I love doing that. It makes me feel less like a visitor and more like I'm part of the hustle and bustle of the city.
Though the hustle and bustle can lead to a cultural misunderstanding. I once tried to tip a waiter in a country where tipping is actually considered rude. He looked at me like I had insulted his entire family.
Oh man, that's why we say you should always do your homework, which means to do your research and prepare before you set out on a trip.
Exactly. Whether it's checking the weather conditions or learning how to ask which way to the museum, a little preparation goes a long way.
Well, Anna, we've covered the airport, the hotel, and even some embarrassing scarves. I think we're ready for the final stretch of our journey.
I think you're right.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry, Anna. I think just talking about all these destinations is actually making me feel a bit of phantom jet lag.
Jet lag. That's the perfect way to start our final section. For those who don't know, jet lag is that exhausted feeling you get after you travel a long way across different time zones and your body needs time to recover. You're awake when you should be sleeping and hungry when it's midnight.
Exactly. I remember coming back from Japan and trying to eat breakfast at 3 a.m. because my stomach thought it was lunchtime. It's the worst, but it's always worth it, especially after a whirlwinds trip.
A whirlwind trip. That sounds, fast.
It is. A whirlwind trip is when you visit a lot of different places or see a ton of things in a very short period of time. It's very hectic, which means busy and slightly crazy, but you get to see so much.
I've definitely done those. I think I visited 5 cities in 7 days once. By the end, I didn't even know what country I was in. But Dan, when you get home, people always ask, what was your favorite thing? So what was the crown jewel of your last adventure?
Oh, the crown jewel. That's a beautiful metaphor. The crown jewel refers to the most important, exciting, or valuable part of something. For my last trip to the mountains, the crown jewel was definitely the sunrise from the peak. It was, just a feast for the eyes.
A feast for the eyes. You're getting poetic today, Dan. That just means something is incredibly beautiful to look at.
It really was. But I have to admit, I also visited a famous museum nearby that everyone was talking about. And honestly, it was nothing to write home about.
Oh, I love that phrase. If something is nothing to write home about, it means it's just ordinary or not very special. It's not worth the hype.
Exactly. It wasn't bad, it just wasn't wow. I think I had too much FOMO before I went.
FOMO. We should explain that one. FOMO stands for the fear of missing out. It's that feeling when you worry that you're missing something exciting that other people are doing. It's why we try to see every single museum in one day.
Guilty as charged. But the hardest part of any trip isn't the FOMO or the packing, it's the reverse culture shock when you get back.
That is so true. Reverse culture shock is a very interesting concept. It happens when you return to your home country after living or traveling abroad, and suddenly your own home feels foreign or strange.
Yes, you don't connect with things the same way, and you feel kind of disconnected. I remember coming back and being overwhelmed by how many choices there were in the grocery store. Like, why do we need 50 types of cereal?
It's the struggle of options. But that feeling of being a bit of a stranger in your own home, it's part of the self-discovery we talked about. You realize how much you've changed.
I couldn't agree more. Travel really is the best education. Well, Anna, we've reached the end of our journey today. We've covered everything from itchy feet to reverse culture shock.
We really have. Let's do a super quick recap for our listeners. We talked about planning with spur-of-the-moment ideas and finding hidden gems. We survived the hustle and bustle of the airport and managed to check our luggage without losing our passports.
We learned how to avoid a tourist trap, how to splurge on a great meal, and why it's always good to have some stupid money in your pocket for emergencies.
And most importantly, we learned that even if you have a travel mishap, like mooing out barista or staying in a storage room, it all becomes a great story in the end.
So, to our wonderful listeners, where would you like to go? What is your dream destination? We want to hear from you.
Yes, please leave a comment and let us know your favorite travel stories or where you're headed next. And if you found this episode helpful, don't forget to subscribe to English Over Tea and give us a like. It really helps us keep the tea brewing and the English flowing.
I can't wait to go back into the studio for our next topic. But for now, I think I need to go deal with my itchy feet and book a flight.
Just make sure you get your passport back this time, Dan.
I promise. Thanks for listening, everyone. Happy travels.
Goodbye, everyone. See you next time.
Bye-bye.